Is Keith one-time Thurman, once upon a time Thurman? Is it over for him, guys? I know that, Keith once held a special place in all boxing fans' hearts, but now, after pulling out of the fight with Tim Tszyu, scheduled for March 30th, with Rolly Romero and Isaac Cruz as the co-main event, I think that there's no coming back from this. I don't know if Keith can really come back from this, guys. Like, I'm a big Keith Thurman fan. I'm a Manny Pacquiao fan. So even when I found out that Manny was gonna have to fight Keith, I was like, man, this is gonna be a tough fight. Keith Thurman ultimately didn't get the job done, but still one of those names that you can't turn down. He had to make that fight happen. Unfortunately, tore his bicep and pulled out of the Tim Tszyu fight. I picked Keith Thurman to win that fight. I was really looking forward to it. I just don't know where he goes from here. I think it's going to be very tough for Keith Thurman to get a fight now. Like, who's going to want to fight you? Ultimately, now you become the ultimate and the ultimate epitome of what a low reward and high risk fight is. So now no one's going to really want to fight Keith Thurman. I think this was his one shot to really stick it to everybody, and I thought he was going to take advantage of it. And I understand that this is something he can't control. Injuries have been frustrating for Keith Thurman in the last 5 to 6 years. It's been an injury with the hands, with whatever, the arms. Obviously, this is the sport of boxing, so you don't have this, you can't really do anything. But ultimately, he had to pull out, and it's unfortunate. And I know it's not his fault. You can't control those kinds of things. I'm not saying he's faking an injury. He wants to pull out because he knows he's gonna lose. He's falling under pressure. I'm not saying any of that, but I just don't know where he goes from now. He was once that welterweight star when it was 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. And he even carried his name all the way to 2024. But, it is what it is now. He pulled out of that fight because he tore his bicep. But, who's he really going to fight now? Like, no one's going to want to fight Keith Thurman. He's going to be considered washed up, and I don't think he's going to get paid as much. And ultimately, I think that Keith Thurman's biggest mistake of his career is not taking any fight out there. I think any fight, even if it wasn't Terrence Crawford, even if it wasn't Errol Spence, it wasn't the money that he wanted. I think that, he should have taken those fights to stay busy. Ultimately, in the sport of boxing, a lot of fighters say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think Keith Thurman ultimately fell victim to that. And because he wasn't active, because he wasn't able to, train constantly and constantly get motivated to fight the best out there, that there's a sense of hunger loss in the body shows too. I'm not saying that Keith Thurman wasn't training. I just think that sense of urgency that comes along with the sport, I feel like all of this could have been avoided. Like, if he had to pull out of this fight, it would have been fine if he continued to, rack up wins prior to this fight. But because he was so inactive, because it's been, close to 2 years since we've last seen Keith Thurman fight, and then, this fight we get excited for him, we say this is his last hurrah, this is his last shot at a legitimate title shot. And not that the belt was on the line or anything. I just mean to keep your name with the top dogs at 47 and even 54 if that's where he wanted to compete. But now pulling out of that fight, who's going to take you seriously? And it's very unfortunate because personally Keith Thurman is one of my favorite fighters, so it kind of hurts to see him in this situation, because how the sport of boxing is. You gotta, or any sport in general, when you tear something like that, it needs a lot of time to heal. Sometimes you even need surgery for a torn ligament. I don't know to what extent Keith Thurman's injury is, how severe it is, but I know he has to have surgery, so that's something that's unfortunate. That takes you out for at least a month. So it is what it is. It's part of the sport of boxing. This just goes to show how much wear and tear and how much the sport of boxing takes a toll on these fighters. And it's unfortunate, but it's the way it is, and I hope Keith Thurman bounces back from it. I'm just here to talk to you guys and tell you guys, like, I don't know how he's going to do it, because who's really going to want to fight him? Like, I'm trying to think of a name. You think Terrence Crawford's going to want to fight Keith Thurman now? I don't think so. Maybe Errol Spence. It depends what Errol Spence is willing to do next, but man, I don't know. I think this might be it for Keith. Like, it's sad to say, because he's given us all these legendary fights with Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, even Manny Pacquiao. All these fights were great fights from Keith. I enjoyed watching the Mario Barrios fight. He he showed that, you know, despite ring rust, despite inactivity, that he could still get a win over, you know, very credible welterweight who just came off a win against your Dennis Ugas in Mario Barrios. So, you know, for me, Keith Thurman was in the right direction, even though that wasn't the best performance in the world. I think he displayed that he's still, you know, able to do his thing, able to get the job done. But now, it's just... bro, like, what are we gonna do with Keith now? Like, as a boxing fan, you know, we wanted to see him get back in the mix. We wanted to see Keith Thurman, you know, ultimately... oh, I don't know why this isn't focusing. Let's see. Dang, this isn't working. Let's see. Okay, there it is. I'll just keep rolling. But yeah, Keith Thurman, in terms of like what we wanted to see, we thought he'd get back on track. And unfortunately, it became a big issue with the injuries. He's talked about, you know, in multiple interviews that he's trying to get back into it. But now, you know, we finally got that opportunity for him, and it just doesn't go down. You know, the torn bicep really messed with it. And I think ever since the Manny Pacquiao loss, he was kind of like, that was the biggest fight of my career. I think he took that loss hard, and it kind of messed with him, and it made it hard for him to get back out there because, one, you just you fought the biggest name that you're ever going to fight, Manny Pacquiao. That's the biggest name that Keith was ever going to fight. So I think psychologically that does something to you, that makes you kind of less motivated in some sense. Oh, here we go again with this. Guys, I don't know what's going on. You can kind of see me. I'm just going to keep talking. You know, Keith Thurman, you know, Manny Pacquiao was the biggest name on the resume, so ultimately, you know, when you fight a guy like that, you're like, what else is there? I lost that fight. I'm sure he took it very tough on himself, but, you know, and he found it hard to kind of get that motivation to get back out there, because it's like, it's going to be hard for me to get that rematch. He dropped me. I'm probably not going to get the rematch against a guy like Manny Pacquiao, even though it was a relatively close fight in my opinion. I just don't know how Keith ultimately, you know, gets his name back with the top guys, especially with the injury and having to pull out of this fight. I just don't know what other names will be out there. He might have to fight a young gun and like a guy like Jerron Boots Ennis to really have a shot of you know, getting his name out there. And I think Boots would be up to that fight because he's struggling to find opposition at 147. He might have to go to 54. He's talked about going down to 40, which has been surprising, but I think Boots is the only guy that Keith even has a chance against. Maybe he could fight a guy like Virgil Ortiz at 54. That's a big name for Virgil, but still, I just feel like this injury was a big, you know, put a big dent in the return game for sure, and it's going to make it a lot difficult now. If Keith had an uphill battle before, he definitely has one now. So, you know, he can't control it, but that's ultimately, you know, the hard truth of what, you know, is going on. That's the hard truth of the scenario that Keith Thurman is in. But hopefully he bounces back. It's just, for me, I don't think it's looking too good. It's going to be tough to get a fight coming off this pullout, this injury, the torn bicep. But hopefully he's able to respond and respond well, because we want to see him back. It's going to be tough. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Is this the end for Keith One-Time Thurman, or will he come back from this? I hope he comes back. I just don't know if it happens. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace. That's going to do it for another Naz Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.